With us being a third of the way through the NFL season, we have now seen a decent amount from the 2024 NFL first round pick. So for today's video, let's regrade the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. And if you guys maybe want to see me regrade round 2, drop a thumbs up on this video. So to start off, we probably have the most polarizing player from this draft class, Caleb Williams, who is kind of always a unanimous #1 overall pick through this class, given what he did at USC. So far, though, you may disagree with me. I'm actually going to give it a B+, because when you look at some of his skill position players in his rookie year, he was dealt a solid hand, right? He had DJ Moore, he had Odunze, who was selected in the top 10 in that draft, a solid tight end in Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift in the backfield, but he had Matt Eberflus as his head coach, he had Shane Waldron as his offensive coordinator, and he had one of the worst offensive lines in football, and he still threw for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. This year, though, for Caleb, he had an improved offensive line, given moves Ryan Poles made in the offseason, getting Joe Thuney, getting Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, and then also bringing in an offensive-minded guru head coach in Ben Johnson. And I've liked what I've seen from Caleb Williams this year. He wasn't great in week #1 against Minnesota. It's a good Vikings defense, and it's week #1. I think he's been getting better and better over the course of the season. He's 2-2 right now. Who knows where this Bears season can go? They could make the playoffs. They could miss it by a wide margin. But I think Caleb Williams looks like a franchise quarterback here at #1. He doesn't look as disappointing as somebody like Jameis Winston or Jared Goff in the past when they were 23 years old. He has all the talent in the world. He just needs to improve his decision making, because he has as good of arm strength as maybe anybody in the National Football League. They're going to continue to invest in going forward. This offensive line can still improve. I can't wait till they get a better running back playmaker than DeAndre Swift. It's probably going to happen in the offseason. They're going to get Colston Loveland and Luther Burden involved as well, and I do believe Caleb Williams can still be a franchise quarterback in Chicago. You may disagree with me. Maybe you'd give this a lower grade, and let me know what you think down below. And I think what makes this not like an A- is because who went #2? Jayden Daniels to the Washington Commanders. For what we know so far, I have to give this pick an A+. Jayden Daniels shocked the world last year when he brought the Washington Commanders, who did not have high preseason expectations, to the NFC Championship game as a rookie. Now, I know he was an older rookie, but he was not inheriting the best situation. He didn't have a great offensive line on paper. He had Terry McLaurin as his wide receiver 1. Not a lot of help outside of that. He had Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson in the backfield, and a defensive-minded new head coach in Dan Quinn, and Cliff Kingsbury, who was a head coach that didn't work out as his offensive coordinator. He would go on to throw for 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He also ran for 891 yards and 6 touchdowns. He brought the Commanders to a 12-5 record, beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road, shocking the world when they beat the Detroit Lions on the road. This year, though, Jayden Daniels has been banged up a little bit. He is 2-1 so far. They ended up beating the Giants in week #1, losing to the Packers in week #2, a game in which Jayden Daniels got hurt in, and then a nice win against the Chargers in week #5. It still looks like Jayden Daniels is a franchise quarterback in Washington. I don't think that's changing anytime soon. He was a Pro Bowler last year. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's one of the 15 or so best quarterbacks in the league already, and he's just in year #2. So this one I went back and forth with between a B+ and an A- in Drake Maye. I'm going to settle on a B+, but if you went A-, I'd be okay with that. I just don't know if I should have a different letter grade for Drake Maye than somebody like Caleb Williams, and I know Drake Maye had maybe as impressive as a regular season game for any of these first round quarterbacks in week #5, beating the Buffalo Bills on the road in Buffalo. It's as impressive as you can get. So far this year, Drake Maye, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 74% completion percentage, over 1,260 passing yards, 3-2 record so far with maybe not the best roster. Like, Drake Maye really doesn't have a top offensive line unit yet. He doesn't really have a top wide receiver unit. He hasn't really had an elite running back by any means in his rookie career so far. And he also has a defensive-minded head coach in Mike Vrabel, and he's been uber impressive in year #2. Like, after his rookie year, this could have been maybe a B- or a B, but it's definitely B+, or if you want to give it an A-, I'm okay with that, given how impressive Drake Maye has looked in year #2. I think it's still a hot take. I would still take Caleb Williams ahead of Drake Maye in a redraft, but they're right there. They're neck and neck right now. And it does look like New England has found their franchise quarterback actually this time. I know it was kind of a tease with Mac Jones, but no, it does look like Drake Maye is the future in New England. All right, so we're going to talk about our first non-QB here, a generational wide receiver coming out of Ohio State. At least that's what he was labeled as going into the 2024 draft. And that is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., the son of Marvin Harrison, an NFL Hall of Famer. Kyler Murray gets his wide receiver 1, right? He's had Christian Kirk at times. He's had DeAndre Hopkins, but now he's getting somebody off a monster year at Ohio State State. That was the consensus wide receiver 1 in this class. Now, some people had a different receiver that we're going to get to in a little bit, kind of edge out Marvin Harrison Jr. in their rankings leading up to the draft. But Marvin Harrison has been disappointing so far. I'm actually going to give this one a D+. And I don't think Marvin Harrison has been like D+ level bad. It's more so that he went 4th overall. And there's some really good players, including a player at the same position that are better who went right after him. So far in his career, Marvin Harrison had 885 yards as a rookie, 62 catches on 116 targets. It felt like him and Kyler Murray really did build that connection in Arizona. This year, it's a new offensive coordinator in Drew Petzing, and it doesn't feel like Marvin Harrison has taken that step so far. He's had some good moments. He's had some bad moments. In Seattle, he had some bad moments in the first half, and then he had a huge touchdown late in that game as well. He did have 98 yards against the Titans, which was a season high in week number 5, but it just doesn't feel like he's captured wide receiver 1 material that he was drafted to be coming out of Ohio State. It's still earlier in their careers. I could do a regrade in a year from now, and this D+ could go to a B+, but right now, for what we've seen so far in 22 career games for Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't think I could put it anything higher than this. So coming in with the 5th overall pick, we have the LA Chargers, who had a tough decision at the time. Do we take a receiver? Do we take an offensive lineman? They went the latter route. They take Joe Alt, an offensive lineman from Notre Dame. And this one, in my opinion, has been an A+. Joe Alt has been one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL since the Chargers drafted him, and he recently went down with a noticeable lower body injury. And we're seeing how much of an impact he can make this offensive line for the Chargers. I know they lost Rashawn Slater going into the year and some other offensive linemen on the interior as well. But when Joe Alt goes down, things are going to go bad. Last year, he was one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL as a rookie, which is insanely impressive. Reminded me a little bit about like Tristan Wirfs from a couple drafts ago. This year, he was off to such an elite start as well. He was the 6th graded offensive tackle according to PFF throughout the first few weeks. And then he goes down with that injury. He was great against the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Broncos, and then unfortunately he got hurt against the New York Giants in week number 4, which was their first loss, and then they lose to the Commanders in week number 5, and we're seeing that affect Justin Herbert in the passing game right now because Joe Alt is as good as it gets as a pass blocker. They definitely made the right decision here, and I just want to get a good sample size of Justin Herbert, Rashawn Slater, and Joe Alt all playing out there at the same time, because as these guys get in towards their prime, they could really be a special trio. So I just mentioned how Joe Alt recently got injured. The player that went number 6, Malik Nabers, also recently got injured, but it was much worse. He tore his ACL in game number 4 this year for the New York Giants. I still have to give this one an A+. With modern medicine and just how often receivers tear their ACLs now, and Malik Nabers is 22, he's going to be fine when he returns next year. I can guarantee that. So far, throughout his career, he was just a monster from day one last year with Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, and Drew Lock as his quarterbacks. In 15 games, he had 170 targets, which is mind-blowing for a rookie, 109 catches, 1,204 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was averaging 80 yards per game as a rookie. He finished 5th in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. I kind of disagree with that, given how good Malik Nabers was with not a lot around him. We didn't really have a great wide receiver too either. All the attention was focused on the 21-year-old last year. This one is an easy A+. This is the guy I kind of hinted at before with the Arizona Cardinals. Some people did have, leading up to the draft, Malik Nabers as their number 1 receiver. I didn't. I was on Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought the Cardinals made the right decision, but no, Malik Nabers has looked better than Marv in the NFL since day one. I guess when in doubt, just draft an LSU receiver. So coming in at number 7, we have our second offensive lineman off the board, somebody that was really not on top 10 radars leading up to the draft and then flew up draft boards pretty much to the day of the draft. He goes number 7 to the Titans, J.C. Latham, the former Alabama offensive lineman. Unfortunately, though, I have to give this pick a C. I don't think Latham has shown enough consistency so far in the NFL. Unfortunately, here in year number 2, he had a hip injury going to week number 1 against the Broncos, and then he re-aggravated it in that game. So we've only seen 45 snaps from Latham in his career. Last year, he was fine for the Tennessee Titans with Will Levis as his quarterback. It was a very young and new offensive line with like Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, and others in the mix, and there really just wasn't chemistry from this collective unit, and it's really tough for offensive linemen sometimes as a rookie, especially if you're playing a new position as well. And Latham, there was talks about moving him all around and playing new positions. Like I said, the consistency hasn't been there so far. I'm giving it a C. It has potential to go up, and hopefully we could see a good, healthy stretch from Latham in 2025. So coming in at number 8, probably the biggest shocker from the 2024 draft. You just had to be there when the Atlanta Falcons selected Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick. Not too long after they ended up giving Kirk Cousins over $100 million over the course of a 4-year deal. This one shocked everybody. They basically said at the time that we never expect to be picking in the top 10 again. We want to have the quarterback for the future that could sit behind Cousins for a few years. That basically ended up happening. For 14 games, the Falcons bench Cousins for Penix last year. I'm actually going to give this grade a C because it was a massive risk at the time to take Penix here at number 8 in my opinion. And it also wasn't the biggest need for Atlanta. Now, I do kind of agree with their reasoning. They hope they'd never be picking this high again and have somebody as talented as Penix available for them in an NFL draft. Penix was a massive risk. He showed some flashes as a rookie. So far in year number 2, he's had some good games and he's had some bad games. Now, he just recently had by far the best game of his career, in my opinion, against the Washington Commanders. His deep ball was on point. He was inheriting an okay team, right? Like you have Bijan Robinson, you have Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts. Like there are some weapons out there for Michael Penix. The offensive line has been kind of a rotation since he's been in there, but he still has some good offensive linemen like Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, who unfortunately got hurt before the season started. But man, I just watched that Carolina Panthers game. I watched that Minnesota Vikings game. He wasn't good in those games, and especially that Panthers game when that really isn't the best defense in the world. But like I said, he played phenomenal against the Commanders. So there's been some good. There's been some A graded games, some B graded games. There's been some D or F graded games. So I'm just going to give it a C right now. Falcons fans, let me know what you would say. Number 9, the Chicago Bears had 2 first-round picks. At number 1, they selected Caleb Williams from the Bryce Young trade. Crazy return for them. So at number 9, they had their first-round pick. They took a receiving target for Caleb Williams. They took Rome Odunze out of Washington. I'm going to give this one a B+. Now, Rome was in a tough spot in his first year, given that they had a bunch of different weapons in Chicago. He wasn't going to be the number 1. They had DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen was kind of the number 2 out of the gate as well. He finishes with 54 catches, 734 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But so far this year, it looks like Rome is now the wide receiver 1 in Chicago. I'm going to give this one a B+. I don't really think his production was really going to matter in year number 1, given all the mouths to feed in Chicago. I knew that the talent was there in Rome Odunze. I loved him in the pre-draft process, and this year he's been off to a great start for the Bears. They had their bye week, so he's played 4 games so far at the moment I'm recording this, and he's scored in every single game, including 2 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions. So far this year, he's got 20 catches, 296 yards. He's averaging 15 yards per reception, and I do think he could be a wide receiver 1 for Caleb Williams for a long time. So sometimes when I'm grading these picks, it also goes back on just the team's sole decision over what we've known so far. So for JJ McCarthy, I'm actually giving this one a D because I'm also taking into account that you took McCarthy at 10 to now be okay with letting Sam Darnold walk in the 2025 offseason. And through the first 5 games this year, that does not look like the good decision whatsoever. Now, JJ McCarthy is a lot cheaper than Sam Darnold, and he's also 6 years younger as well. And we haven't seen much from McCarthy. We've seen a couple preseasons, and we've seen 2 games this year. We saw a week 1 win against the Chicago Bears. He was terrible for 3 quarters, good in the 4th quarter, and he was bad for all 4 quarters against the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe not the best defense in the world, but an improved one, and then he's been injured ever since. Now, McCarthy should be coming back soon, and we should see him start again so far, but what we've seen in a very small sample size, I would give this an incomplete, but if I had to give it a letter grade, it's a D, and why it's not a C like Michael Penix, it's because they ended up having a better quarterback in their possession in Sam Darnold. It is so tough to find a franchise quarterback, and they had that in Darnold, but they opted to go with McCarthy. And for what I've seen from McCarthy, I don't think he's a franchise quarterback right now. I didn't really think that coming out of Michigan. He was a major project. He was very young. He's still just 22 years old. But yeah, out of all the quarterbacks in this first round that we'll get to, we still have one more to talk about. He's been the least impressive so far, and I probably have the least confidence in him specifically. So here at number 11, we have the New York Jets selecting Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. They could have taken a quarterback. They could have taken a tight end. They opted for the offensive lineman. I'm going to give this pick so far a B. Now, I liked Olu last year a little bit more so far this year. The Jets have been kind of all over the place here in 2025, and I also think it has to do with a lot of new faces there. Now, they had Joe Tippmann, John Simpson last year. They bring in Armand Membu this year, and then unfortunately, before the year starts, their most veteran offensive lineman, Elijah Vera Tucker, goes down with a season-ending triceps injury. Fashanu's now already been through 2 head coaching tenures. The disaster last year with Robert Saleh, this year with Aaron Glenn. They're 0-5 so far. I feel like their offensive game plan has not been consistent, and it really doesn't do any favor to Olu Fashanu, who I do think is a very solid run blocker. He could probably improve a little bit in pass block. I think the Jets made a fine pick here. Better players went after him, but at least I think they have their offensive tackles for the future, and Fashanu and Armand Membu. So the second highest quarterback grade we're going to give in this class, the second A, we had Jaden Daniels at an A+, we had Caleb Williams and Drake Maye at B+. I'm going an A to Bo Nix at the Denver Broncos. I was so wrong about Bo Nix. I did not like him coming out of Oregon. Dan Lanning turned this guy's career around because he was not an NFL quarterback when he left Auburn to go to Oregon. He has a monster statistical year in 2023 with the Ducks. And then last year, he was amazing for the Denver Broncos. He brought them to the playoffs when they didn't really have playoff expectations in Nix's first year. He ends up finishing third in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. He goes 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 3,700 passing yards. He ran for 430 yards. He's already rushed for 100 yards this year. He hasn't been as good this year to start off the year that he was last year, but I still think Bo Nix can get it going. It feels like Sean Payton has his guy, and he's got a solid running back now in J.K. Dobbins. He could still have a better, I think, wide receiving unit. He could still have a better offensive line, and he's on the older side as well. Bo Nix is 25. JJ McCarthy is 22, so maybe this is Bo Nix's ceiling, but from what we've seen so far in 22 career games, he's 13-9. I do think Bo Nix has been an A letter grade so far. You can let me know if you disagree or not. Right after him though, Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. This is an A+. This is an elite tight end pick here at number 13 for the Raiders. So far this year though, Brock Bowers has been banged up. He's been trying to play through a knee injury and it's just not going to plan. But with him playing injured, he still has 19 catches, 225 yards, basically top 10 across the board in any tight end metric. So far though in his career, basically what he did last year was generational, was one of the best rookie tight end seasons in NFL history. 112 catches on 153 targets as a rookie with basically Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Desmond Ridder throwing him the football. That's how bad his quarterback play was, and he was a monster. 1,194 yards. He averaged around 70 yards per game. He was an all-pro first-team member at the tight end position as a rookie. He finished runner-up to Jaden Daniels in the Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. This is an easy A+. He's still just 22 years old. He is so young. He is a freak tight end talent, and he's going to be one of the best tight ends in the league for the next decade. Coming here at 14, the New Orleans Saints selected Talise Fuaga, the offensive lineman out of Oregon State. I'm going to be giving this pick a B. I think some similar analysis I can give for Fuaga that I did for Fashanu. I think it's been a very tough spot to go into right away. The offenses haven't been great because of a talent at the quarterback position, at least last year. Rattler's been better this year under Kellen Moore. Fuaga's now dealt with 2 coaching tenures, last year with Dennis Allen, this year with Kellen Moore. I think he's shown flashes to be a great offensive lineman for the Saints going forward. I think there's a lot of new names there, and he's going to keep getting more familiar and better and comfortable in this offensive system going forward. And I just really like Kelvin Banks and Fuaga just being on this offensive line for the Saints in the long term. We've seen a ton of like Cesar Ruiz and Trevor Penning over the years, but no, I'm really excited for Banks and Fuaga to protect either Rattler or their next franchise quarterback down the line. Giving this one a B. So at 14 was our first defensive pick in this whole draft. Kind of wild that only offensive players went in the top 13. 14 was Latu out of UCLA. If I graded this pick before the season started, would have given it a B, B+. Right now, though, I'm giving it an A. Latu has been one of the best edge rushers in the NFL in 2025. Now, I think it's more so watching the tape than box score watching because right now he just has 1 sack, but he's been getting to the quarterback way quicker this year, and it's a big reason why the Tennessee Titans are 4-1. Yes, it's the offense. Yes, it's Daniel Jones, but Latu is stepping up and showing why the Colts were smart to draft him as the first defender in the 2024 first round. Now, there are some better defensive players that went after him, but Latu's in the top 5. He's got a ton of pass deflections this year. He actually has 2 interceptions for a linebacker, and he is an absolute monster in both run defense and rushing the quarterback. This is definitely an A for the Colts edge rusher. I also like what I've seen from Byron Murphy so far in his career as well. I'm going to give this one an A for the Seattle Seahawks. I think the defensive tackle has shown that it was smart for the Seattle Seahawks to take him with the 16th overall pick out of Texas. Now, sometimes defensive linemen, specifically defensive tackles, aren't good against a ton of sacks, but Byron Murphy has been one of the best pass rushing defensive linemen in the NFL, and he's still just 23 years old. Just think about how good he's going to be in like 3 to 4 years from now. So Dallas Turner goes out of Alabama to number 17 to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to give this one a C. I do think Turner's been a little bit inconsistent so far, maybe just not as flashy as Latu, Byron Murphy, or a defensive guy we're going to get to in 2 picks. Maybe he's also overshadowed in Minnesota as well, playing on that defensive line with Jalen Redmond and Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, but he's been banged up this year. Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, a lot bigger names, and I think more noticeable players at times have been better or just on the field with Dallas Turner. Vikings fans, you can let me know if you agree or disagree. Is this too harsh? Do you think he should be a B or an A? Or do you think this is fair giving him a C so far? I think I would just like to have seen a little bit more because he was in talks to be the best defender from this draft class, and I don't think he's been that so far. Maybe Georgia offensive linemen just aren't it anymore. Broderick Jones with the Steelers in 2023 Marius Mims with the Cincinnati Bengals in 2024. I'm giving this one a D so far. Marius Mims didn't have the best rookie season. He was graded out as the 67th best offensive tackle according to PFF out of 81 this year. It hasn't been much better. He hasn't been good in the passing department, in the running department, and it's also more so on the Cincinnati Bengals offense as a whole, where Joe Burrow goes down. Now you got to protect for a different quarterback that definitely is not as smart as Joe Burrow in the pocket either. The rest of the offensive line does Marius Mims no favors. Orlando Brown's been super disappointing. It's like Ted Karras out there, who's been terrible this year. Dalton Reisner, Jalen Rivers, Dylan Fairchild. So maybe I should give Marius Mims the benefit of the doubt, but from what I've seen individually of Mims, it hasn't been pretty. Because the player that went after Mims isn't the same position or on the same side of the ball, but man, it's an A+. Jared Verse to the LA Rams at pick 19 out of Florida State. Last year, Verse was maybe the best or the second best overall defender from the first round and the draft class pretty much as a whole as a rookie. He was the 7th best edge rusher according to PFF out of 119 possible in the NFL this year. He's up to 3. He's unreal in the pass rush department. He's got 14 tackles this year, 2 forced fumbles. He had 5 QB hits against the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday night on October 2nd. And this guy is just a menace when he gets to the quarterback. He's shown up in the playoffs so far as well. He does a ton that doesn't show up in the box score. He's a great run stopper as well. I mean, this is just a home run pick by the Rams. He's no Aaron Donald, but it's as close as you can get. The Pittsburgh Steelers went offensive line here at number 20. They took Troy Fashanu, the offensive tackle out of Washington. Last year, he got hurt in his first game of the season, so it's kind of just an incomplete rookie year. This year, he's played 4 games. There's been some good, there's been some bad. He was not great against the Jets. He was not great against the Seattle Seahawks, but he has been better as of late. So I'm just giving this one a C. 5 games so far. It's also tough to evaluate an offensive lineman in 5 games. The Steelers' offensive line has also been hit or miss. Like guys like Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick have been good, but guys like Broderick Jones and Isaac Seumalo have not been good this year. Fatanu's kind of been in the middle. At 21, the Miami Dolphins selected Chop Robinson, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Gonna give this one a B. I think he had an A rookie season. He finished 5th in defensive rookie of the year voting. He had 6 sacks across 17 games. This year, though, Chop Robinson cannot get to the quarterback whatsoever. Like this year in a vacuum would be like a D grade. So I'm just going to give it a B for now. I would like to see Robinson be more consistent over the next 10 or so games this season, because Miami's run defense has arguably been the worst run defensive unit in the NFL. And it doesn't really help when a lockdown corner goes right after you, and that's Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, the first DB off the board in this draft, 22 to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm giving this one an A for Philadelphia. Mitchell has been one of the best corners in the league since he's been drafted. He unfortunately just suffered a hamstring injury, but he's been great in coverage so far this year, now taking control of opposing teams' #1 receiver. Last year, it could be a little bit of Darius Slay doing that. This year, it's all on Quinion Mitchell. I love this pick for Philadelphia. They did a great job drafting 2 good corners in the first 2 rounds in the 2024 draft. Now, this one is also tough to grade here at 23, because last year it would have been an A or an A+ in Brian Thomas Jr., but this year it's kind of been an F or a D. So I'm just going to say a B+ for BTJ. Last year, his better games were with Mac Jones and not with Trevor Lawrence. And this year, he really hasn't had a great connection with T-Law so far. He was 4th in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting last year. 87 catches, 1,282 yards, and 10 touchdowns, averaging around 15 yards per reception. This year, though, 244 yards through 5 games. He's averaging 48 yards per game compared to 75 yards per game last year. It's going to be an interesting storyline to see over the next few weeks to see if his chemistry with T-Law can get built up anymore. So I'm giving it a B+. So then over the next 4 picks, we got 4 straight Ds. At 24, Terron Arnold, the defensive back out of Alabama, going to the Detroit Lions. Definitely some better players on the board. I'm giving this one a D, like I said. He was all over the place in his rookie season. A lot of penalties, a lot of burn coverages. This year, he hasn't gotten much better, and unfortunately, he recently got hurt. Jordan Morgan has only played 10 career games so far. Last year, only playing 6. This year has played 4 games so far. I don't really think has been a good starting offensive lineman yet, and has been playing guard for the Packers now, which just makes his value go down a little bit more. Graham Barton also playing center now, a little bit different from when he was coming out of Duke, where he was an offensive tackle, and now he's playing center. First round center really doesn't have that much value either. I mean, the Buccaneers offensive line is just banged up left and right this year, but he hasn't been great when he's been playing. And the Cardinals have had 2 first round picks in this draft. This one they got when they traded down in the 2023 draft, so the Texans can trade up there in the top 3. They took Darius Robinson, a defensive tackle from Mizzou. This one's going to get a D. Robinson barely played in his rookie year, and this year when he's been on the field in 152 snaps, he's been terrible. PFF has graded him out as the 116th defensive lineman out of 120 eligible. This one might be harsh, but I'm giving Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs a C. I just feel like we could have seen a little bit more out of Worthy, who's one of the fastest players in the NFL. Last year, he had 98 targets, 59 catches, 638 yards, and a touchdown. He could do it in the run game as well. This year, though, Worthy did get banged up in week number 1 against the Chargers. He's got 11 catches, 125 yards in essentially 2 games. Maybe it's just I have higher expectations for Xavier Worthy. If you wanted to put this at a B, that's fine. I just wonder where his production is going to be as well when Rashee Rice comes back in a week. And then I'm going to give Tyler Guyton to the Dallas Cowboys at 29, a D as well. Between Jordan Morgan, Graham Barden, and Tyler Guyton, it's not been great for the offensive lineman selected in the mid to late 20s. Guyton struggled with his consistency as an offensive tackle in his rookie year. This year, he's been one of the worst pass blockers in the NFL. And a reason why I gave Terron Arnold a D is because Nate Wiggins, who went 6 picks later to the Baltimore Ravens, has been so much better. This one is a B+. Nate Wiggins has been on a tear to start off year number 2, kind of showing that he could be the best corner on the Baltimore Ravens very soon. Like, it's still Marlon Humphrey, but it could be Nate Wiggins as early as next year. And just Eric DeCosta just knows how to draft defensive backs. This is probably a hot take, but Ricky Pearsall this year honestly has impressed me more than Xavier Worthy did last year in the smaller sample size. I'm giving this pick a B. Pearsall last year got shot before the season started. Like, a really scary thing happened to him before he's even going to get on the field. He does end up playing 11 game starts for them, but there was a lot of mouths to feed. At one point, it was Brandon Ayuk, it's Juwan Jennings, it's George Kittle, and a bunch of names there in San Fran. This year, though, everybody's been banged up in San Francisco. Pearsall has had some really nice games this year with Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. He had 4 for 108 against the Seahawks, 8 for 117 against the Cardinals. I think this was a solid pick by the 49ers, who maybe didn't really need a wide receiver at the time, but it's looking like it was smart that they took one here. Way better than the receiver that went after him, and that is Xavier Legette to the Carolina Panthers. I didn't give any Fs in the first round. I'm not going to start here. I'm going to give this one a D, but some of these guys that were Ds could definitely become Fs by the end of the year. Legette has definitely been underwhelming so far. Jalen Coker has impressed me more than Legette, and Coker was undrafted last year as well. Ted McMillan is just miles better than Xavier Legette, who's had 6 catches for 39 yards this year in 3 games. He did find the end zone recently. Last year, he had 49 for 497 and 4 touchdowns. But as there's just new faces coming to Carolina, he's getting more expensive and more expensive. I'm not sure if Legette's going to be on this team in 2 to 3 years. And that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you agree with or disagree with here for my 2024 NFL Draft regrade. Subscribe for more content like this. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.